Samantha, it will be up to you if you turn your video back on, if you'd like that. We can see if you ever have a question or anything like that. Currently, you're muted and your video's turned off.
I'm sorry, I forgot.
There you go. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
See you in the back there.
Oh, there's Crystal. Okay.
Do you all have, do you see, there's a way in the top right-hand corner that looks like a grid. You can change the view if you'd like to see all of the participants in the meeting, or if you'd just like to see who's speaking, or you'd like to play around with that for a second. I can go ahead and do introductions. You know, we really just want to thank everyone for being willing to go through this process during these times in a different format. You know, we'd obviously rather be doing these in person, but and we'd also like to give you more time, but unfortunately we're kind of handcuffed to 20-minute time slots here. So we appreciate all the responses to questions specific to the program that you applied for, and to keep them as concise as possible. My name is Chris Holly. I'm the team lead this afternoon, and I work with the Florida League of Cities. I've worked here for 2 years. Before that, I worked for Leon County for 10 years. I've got a budget and finance background, and have participated in the CHSP process for 5 or 6 years. So with that, I'll turn it over. We've got a couple other team members here, and Samantha will be our timekeeper, and she'll wrap it up. And when she's done with her introduction, she'll kick it off, and you'll have 20 minutes from that point to conclude our presentation. So.
I'm Margot Thomas. I'm the program director for Take Stock in Children at TCC, and I've been a part of the CHSP process for 7 years.
Good afternoon. I'm Michelle Bird. I'm the owner of Favorite Travel and Tours, and I believe this is my fourth or fifth season.
My name is Samantha Barrows. I'm a lawyer. I'm an arbitrator, and I'm semi-retired. And I've been with CHSP 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure. I am also your timekeeper, and I am going to start your time right now.
And I'd just like, before you guys jump in, just another little piece is make sure you mute your lines if you're not speaking, because that'll help with some of the reverberation feedback that we get. So if you can just be mindful of when you're on mute.
Okay, so do we go now?
Yes, ma'am. You can introduce them. And I would say one of the first questions that we're asking of all the groups is to talk about the impacts of COVID and how those impacts will affect your organization and the services you provide over the next year, what changes you've seen, how it's impacted your budget, those types of things. So if you can hit that, and then we've got some questions that you should have received from our reviewers, and I can kind of walk us through the responses to some of those. But if you'd like to touch on the COVID response first, please.
I'm Gina Dozier. I'm the interim CEO for CCYS, and we've got several of our team members actually in the same room, so we may be switching out in front of the camera view, and we've got our other folks on that you all can see, and they can introduce themselves as they respond to questions, I believe. So obviously, 2 major things with the impact of COVID. One, because we are, particularly for this program, but also other program, we're providing residential services. So kids are staying in the house, like we are providing them a place to live. So we obviously were an essential service, and we did not shut the program down or stop because of COVID-19. We adapted the way we were, interacting with the world and with each other as a result. So currently, the other big impact obviously is technology. Technology has been a part of our world, but with changes in this, and particularly with the children doing the online learning, we had to make sure that we upgraded technology and had that technology in place. And looks like that will absolutely be something going forward that we'll be participating more in for the foreseeable future. And exactly what that's going to look like, we don't know. We have been fortunate that we have not had any of our residents become symptomatic or have any, experienced COVID. We had staff members, no one that tested positive, but we did have some folks that for different reasons either may have been tested or may have self-isolated for a period of time. So that did affect our staffing. With obviously, if we had a staff member out, we would have to have another staff member covering and that kind of thing. That and then the children limiting their activities. I mean, obviously school was the big thing. When that changed to schooling at home, our staff members had to become also teachers in addition to parents, pseudo parents, pseudo teachers. And then for the kids not being able to go to Pizza Hut or to, some of the public places that they enjoy going. Even the parks, so that's been a big change, is adapting their routine and coming up with activities for them with less, travel abroad, out into the community. And that will gradually, I guess, increase as things begin to open up. We still are utilizing the precautions. The visitors to the home has been limited historically anyway because of the confidential nature of the kids that are placed there and the type program that it is. But even case managers, guardian ad litems, folks like that have limited their face-to-face contact with the kid, or their actual physical presence at the house. They have been doing the teleservices, telehealth, those type things, since we've switched to more telemedicine. So I expect that to continue. So, much of it is unknown, but I would say in terms of, fiscal, it's going to depend largely on the staff, and if there are staffing issues, if we maintain our staff, and then, like I said, technology, I think we're pretty good with that right now, but we don't know until we get a little bit further into it. And then once we figure out what the school systems are going to do, if that's going to continue to be much online learning or back to school in the brick and mortar buildings full time. So
thank you. I would ask, you mentioned staffing, and one of the questions that came up here was who pays for the costs of outside of the 2 employees at Treehouse, and how many paid staff members are allocated to the Treehouse program outside of the 2 you're requesting?
okay, I'm going to let Nancy Hilger, who's our CFO, sit in front of the camera and answer that question.
Thanks, Gina. Thank you, Nancy.
Hello.
Hello.
Our funding outside of the program that we're asking for is Big Bend Community-Based Cares. And then also the Treehouse of Tallahassee board will supplement our staffing needs. But like Gina said, we've had employees who have had to self-quarantine. So we've had to pay extra expenses because of the overtime to cover the shifts where people were not able to do that. Outside of the 2 employees that we're asking for funding for, we have 10, and that's 5 part-time and 5 full-time in addition to the 2 that we have on there already.
And I've mentioned this to other applicants as well, but if circumstances don't allow us to provide you with the full amount of funding that you've requested, do you anticipate mitigating that and only bringing 1 person on, or how would you handle that if there was a certain?
It would certainly make an impact. We might have to make adjustments and other things. With this being our first year for the program, we're not sure what all the expenses will be. One of the things that we know that we have had has been a major factor is the health insurance for these employees, and where they were previously, they had health insurance, but they didn't pay 100%. And CCYS has always paid 100% health insurance premiums. So that's been an expense. I mean, we would not want to have to reduce staffing, but if that's what we had to do, then we couldn't. We still have to maintain those kids, and it depends on how many's in there. So we just have to come up with other ways, and hopefully our fundraising would help to supplement the whatever we didn't get funded for.
Okay. And I know you guys are doing the best you can, so we may need to jump back around with Gina.
That's okay.
When you talked about, obviously only having the program for less than a year, are you guys in a position to comment on how the implementation is going?
I'm going to give that to Gina. So I'm gonna start with a response, and then Crystal Griffin is the program manager, is on the call. She may jump in, as well as Alicia Potzler, who is the clinical director. In terms of the number of kids served and the services that are being provided overall, it's been a pretty seamless transition. We've got young people in the program that were in the program when we took over, unfortunately, back in October. They've been there an extended period of time, and we have admitted a number of new young people that have been placed into DCF care, because of abuse or neglect allegations since that time. So based on the numbers that we got from CHS on the number that they served over the period of a year, we're, if you prorate it, if you look at the pace of the number of kids served, it's right on par. So we're moving right along with that. And obviously we have adapted to COVID. So the services that are being provided are continuous. Nothing has changed with that in terms of the ability to provide the service and serving the number of kids that had been served. And then programmatically, the other ladies could speak briefly to some of the specific changes in terms of like what we're doing in the house. We've got a new piece starting this week and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and this actually, there's another question here that may be better for the program manager, but about training protocols that have been implemented to reduce statistical errors in the initial screenings and intake and the eligibility of the program.
Okay, I believe that was a question that was in response to the audit and the audit finding. I think that was Ms. Burt's question, so I can clarify if that's what that was. That would relate to another program, but if it's related to this program, then I can answer.
Okay, should that not, I'm going back to that question. Okay, yeah, that was related to the audit.
Okay, well, so we want to finish the program question first.
You can go back to the program manager. We don't have to get into the audit piece. Yeah, it's about the numbers.
Do you want to chime in with anything first, Crystal?
Sorry, what was that?
I guess we're talking about implementation, and what we've been able to do since taking over. I think a lot of, like Gina said, a lot of it was kind of seamless, and we're still servicing the kids that we had been servicing, and we've had several new intakes and discharges. As we're working on getting some services in-house, which has been difficult due to COVID. So even some of the things that we would have normally done, counselors, children going to see different counselors or different services outside, it's all been virtual, which is not always the easiest thing to do with 6 to 11-year-olds. I can barely get them to sit and eat lunch, whereas sit in front of a computer and talk to a stranger. So with that being said, we are working on one of our programs coming in and doing some work with the kids, our SNAP program. We're having some meetings to see if they can come, well, actually to get our kids off campus and kind of, they've been sterile. Our children haven't left here other than to go in the backyard, really. And so we're the ones that if we bring in anything, if anything is brought in, it's by staff or vendors. But we're going to take a step maybe next week and start to transition out and go over to the main office, and do some work with our SNAP program. So that's one way we've been trying to implement some new things for them, and as well as getting some training for staff. Majority of the staff have been here for a very, very long time. But I think the needs of the kids have changed a little bit. And with our program, trying to kind of line up services from what we do at the SPE shelter and what we do here, we want to make sure that it lines up the same way. So we want to make sure all of them have the training that from treehouse to shelter across the board with our shelters. So we're working on doing some training. I'm sorry if I took too much time.
No, you're fine.
And we're
also going to be working on implementing a behavior management system too. So we're going to further build up the program that way.
Okay. There was a question here about the application serving larger numbers of persons by outreach than what's shown, but there are no client numbers that are shown as pending. And if you could explain.
Okay, so I'll take that one, and then I'll go back to the one about the audit question about things that have been put in place. So the first question that relates to, so when we report in the application, there's a section that requests the agency numbers and then the program numbers. We have a street outreach program, and part of the services that they provide are like community services. So they may have a client caseload of young people that have actually come in and opened cases with them, but then they also go out to the street and provide services on the streets where they're, for example, handing out survival aid, or they may team up with non-neighborhood help and take a medical mobile unit out. And so some of those services that they're providing, they
I'm
don't have
sorry.
a name or a date of birth.
Gina, are you responding to the audit right now?
Yes, to the question about the numbers, why the numbers didn't match up, or why it said the numbers.
So I don't know if you've clarified, because I don't want you to go too far about talking about another program, because you're using your time regarding this program.
What was the street outreach program?
Okay, once it's clarified.
Okay, so I thought I was answering the question about why the numbers, it said some of the numbers didn't reflect. So that was my explanation. Some of the street outreach services are not captured in the agency number. So there's actually other services that are provided that don't get captured. Okay. Does that answer the question for that? Okay. And then the audit question about things that have been put in place to fix. So what happened, that was actually already corrected by the time that the audit was completed. There was a new protocol put in place that became effective July 1 of 2019. So our auditors came after that. What happens is that we get a screening and eligibility. It happens over the telephone. That's reported by staff. And then in order to, I'm sorry. Okay. In order to, we entered a client into our database, and then there's another database with the Department of Juvenile Justice. So now there is a process. We have to log into the Department of Juvenile Justice database, search the client, determine if the client is active with them, and there is a JJIS, Juvenile Justice Information System identification number that we have to have and put into our database to generate the invoice for the Florida Network of Youth and Family Services. And that became effective last July 1st. So what actually happened was it was just the documentation of that eligibility, making sure that they had been screened through that system. It was just some of the documentation. They were eligible, and it turns out they were eligible, but just between the time that they had initially been screened, that somebody didn't go back and put that number in.
Okay. And I know we just have a few more minutes here, but one of the other questions was related to the targeted zip code and just where the most of your clients are from. If you could touch on this, please.
Okay. So for this program in particular, Treehouse, because of the nature of the clients that we're getting, all of those referrals come through the Department of Children and Families or Big Bend Community-Based Care, and they're removed from their home by child protective investigators. So that's not information that we typically get, is like where they were actually coming from. For the agency as a whole, other numbers, we can take a sampling of that. Ranked 32303 would be our biggest zip code. 32304 would be second. 32310, 32305, and 32301 that's our top 5 ranked from the most prevalent.
3 more minutes left.
Okay. Was there another specific question, or we should just start going through the stack that we have?
Well, I went through those questions. So the way I tried to organize them by budget, you know, HR position hours, and then maybe some of the issues, and then the reporting. But if there's something else that you wanted to touch on,
Can we open
Answer
it to
you
the
all
floor?
questions. That's what our purpose was.
Yeah, let's open it to the other volunteers on the team. Do they have any other questions, please?
no?
Well, I do want to acknowledge, if we don't have questions to answer, that we do have one of our board representatives on, Scott Harrell. So we did manage to get our board representation even with doing it remotely. And Justin Barfield, who's our development director, and this was his first time, I think, writing and submitting CHSP application packet. So he's with us as well. One of the questions that we got, Nancy just wanted to make sure, we did renew our Solicitation of Contributions Act. The way the cycle falls, our application is due, the CHSP application is due prior to our renewal date with the state. So we renew that every March. That has been renewed, and we will submit that when we do our contract.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Thank you. I was just wondering, I saw mention where they didn't have, it was unknown for the matching funds. Is there a reason for that? Why it's unknown? The matching funds? You know that it's unknown?
Oh, the matching fund?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we don't know exactly how that's going to work with Treehouse yet. The Treehouse of Tallahassee has its own board of directors, and they're primarily a fundraising board, and we haven't operated the program for a full year. So for example, intern volunteer hours would be used as match, and we haven't calculated baseline on that yet, seeing at the time of the application and even now we're less than a year into the operating the program.
Question, and that is, I noticed that several of the positions had pay cuts. Is that an attempt just to balance your budget, or was that something that just needed to be done from future planning process?
I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
That I noticed that several of the positions had pay cuts. The ED and program manager and clinical director, or am I misinterpreting the data?
Can I answer that?
Yes, please.
The CEO position has been vacant since December. So we know that the funding year, it'll be different. Program manager, our program manager left, so they'll come in at a different pay rate. I think the clinical director, we had one that was at a higher rate, and then we do have a clinical director now, but they came in at a different rate of pay.
Your time is up. Sorry.
All right, well, thank you guys very much. I know this is a lot to fit into a very short time frame. We're all doing the very best that we can. We greatly appreciate the work that you guys do and the time and the heart that goes into it. So thank you very much. And we're going to move on because we got 20 minutes lined up all morning and all day. So
Bless you all. Good luck to you too.
y'all have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Michelle, I think when you went to ask your question, it sounded like you have some music in the background.
Right now to present. Okay, we have 3 minutes to launching.
No, that one.
Hi, LaFawn. How are you doing?
Hey, Sarla. Hey.
Hello, Miss Dr. Ball Thomas. How are you doing? I'm fine, thank you.
Great. It's good to see you again this year.
I know, yeah.
Like you're being safe.
Yeah, and trying my best, staying home as much as possible. As much as possible. Unfortunately, I'm asthmatic, so it's New World Order.
Chris, I think it might be appropriate to remind everybody to mute their screens unless they're speaking.
Do we have everyone on the call that'll be participating?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead.
Everybody that's gonna speak are actually in the room with me. We're kind of separated out a little bit, but I'll be doing most of the speaking.
Okay. Well, when we've had participants on multiple computers, it helps that everyone just mute their lines except for the one person that's speaking, so we don't get as much feedback and reverberation as possible. So thank you very much for all being socially distanced but present at the same time. So we really we thank you guys, and we know this is difficult. We'd much rather be doing these in person and face to face, but this is the way the world works right now. So we're all doing the best we can. We only have a 20-minute window, so we'll go through and we'll do our introductions, and then Samantha will be our timekeeper, and so she'll let you know at that point when it's getting started, and then we'll turn it over to you. One of the first questions that we would appreciate you starting off with is really responding to what's going on in COVID and the impacts for your organization and how you provide your services and what the planning has been like for those impacts into the future. And then we'll go through some of the more detailed questions that our review panel has submitted. I'm sure you guys have copies of those. So with that, my name is Chris Holly, the team lead. I work for the Florida League of Cities. I've been here for 2 years. Before that, I worked for Leon County for 10 years in budget and finance background. This is my 5th year participating in the CHSP process. So with that, turn it over to the rest of my esteemed panel.
Okay, my name is Margot Thomas. I'm the program director for Take Stock in Children at Tallahassee Community College. And this is my 7th year as a CHSP review volunteer.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Burt. I'm the owner of Favorite Travel and Tours, and I believe this is my 5th cycle.
Samantha Beige, I'm a lawyer and part-time mediator. And I'm not sure, but I think this is my 4th year, so I'm kind of the new person on the block. I'm your timekeeper, and I'm going to start the time now. You have 20 minutes for your program.
Well, my name is LaFonda Wilson, and I'm the CEO of Kings Incorporated of Big Bend. In the room with me, I have Rick Feldman. He's right behind me. He's my CFO, and then I have Darren Odell. He's my data person and also my assistant. Also, we have on the call Dr. Patty Ball Thomas. She is our board chair. So she's just sitting in as support for us for the session. Okay. So the first thing is as far as coronavirus and how that has affected us, we actually stopped our physical operations as far as serving the children in our centers. We wanted to ensure that everyone was safe as far as staff and children, and so everybody went home. And so now what we're doing is we're doing distance services. So we're serving our children and our families via video, phone calls, as well as email. And so we're not actually doing physical services at this time, but we do have our plans to reopen. So we have a plan of reopening on August 7th, and we'll continue continue to do our distance services through the summer months. Usually in the summer, we close or clean up facilities and all those things and prepare for the new students that we'll be bringing into our centers. And so we'll reopen at the beginning of our program year, which is August 7th. We'll be bringing all teachers and staff back to the offices at the end of July. Currently, everybody is still, like I said, working from home. We only come into the office when we have to, and this is one of those times that we felt like we should come into the office so that we can all kind of be together to talk to you all. And we have a plan in place that when we do reopen, everyone will be required to wear, all of our teachers will be required to wear a mask. We'll have a centralized drop-off and pick-up section. We'll have enhanced disinfecting and sanitizing of the centers. We also, as far as getting in new students and all that, we also have implemented our online application process as well to keep the distance. And so we'll be on standby with the health departments, DCF, our federal funders, as well as our city and United Way funders as well, to let all of our funders know when we're expected to reopen. I believe that we handled the closing as best as we could with the information that we had. And I just think that as far as now, the safest thing for us is to continue with the closure for now, as far as physically serving the children, to still do the distance services. I think that that's the best thing for us now with the information that we have now. And the one thing that I will say, just to add a little bit of information behind the reason why we decided to stay closed so long to physically serve the children in our centers, is because we've had 5 individuals who have been directly impacted by COVID-19, and 3 of which have been clients of ours. And we've had 2 deaths on our client side. And then we've also had a whole family, a 2-year-old and their parents, that have contracted the virus but has since recovered. 2 of our teachers have been impacted by that. 1, a significant other who has passed away from COVID-19, and 1 of which who had a very, very close relative that passed away from COVID-19. And so we thought that it was wise for us not to reopen sooner, but kind of push that back until August to ensure that everybody has been cleared for a period of time through the summer.
That's unfortunate. Is not the right word, but we, working through that, I think everybody's kind of had to answer those challenges differently. So what was the date that you all closed? And then I think you said August is when you plan on opening up again. Is that what was the actual date that you guys closed? And then when did you begin providing the online services?
So the date that we closed, you said what? March 16th was our last. Sure. March 16th was the day that we closed, but that particular week was our spring break week, so we were effectively supposed to close during that week. But then that next week was when we were supposed to start back operations. But after we started getting to the peak part of it, we decided that we needed to stay closed at that point. And we did a deep cleaning of the centers during that period of time. And made sure we sanitized and disinfected everything within the centers and equipment and playgrounds and all of that. So that's what we did.
And you've announced an August date for reopening?
Yes, that's the August date. Yes, August 7th. To be exact. That is our actual first day of program services that was approved by our board of directors.
Okay. Would you like to get into some of the detailed questions that were submitted now?
Sure.
Okay. And one of those we can begin with on the personnel side and specifically to your request, and then we can walk through some of the other more detailed questions. But in the funding request, obviously your budget indicated $115,000, and it says for salaries and benefits. But beyond that, justifying that amount, can you help us just get a better understanding of that? And if we weren't able to provide the full amount of funding, do you still anticipate bringing this person on, hiring them full time? How would you offset if we weren't able to fund it fully?
Okay, so if I'm looking at the question correctly, because I printed out the questions, I actually typed up some responses and all of that to make sure I stayed on topic. But the question was to clarify if I'm asking for salaries and benefits or matching dollars. And it's actually both, because the matching dollars are so that we can extend our operations beyond the 6 hours a day that the federal grant actually pays for. So they only pay for 6 hours a day, that's it. And we're still required to raise dollars. But how we use those dollars that we raise is use those by adding more services to the families that are in need in our Leon County area. So it is specific for teachers. No one else receives dollars from the CHSP. It's specific to teacher salaries and benefits, and that's only for 2 hours of the day. But we have to raise a total, and I'll just add this in there, we have to raise a total of $913,000 every year in order for us to draw down all of our federal dollars. And so paired with the 115 that we're asking for, we're able to add more hours onto the day. And that also allows us to draw down a total of I believe $420,000 of federal dollars.
Okay. Is that where the increase in federal funding comes from? There were some other pieces, but go ahead.
So the increase, I didn't do the budget for the previous fiscal years. And so the budget that was presented in the last 2 years of the grant was just based on the 115 and just the 115 or the 110 or however much that was requested the last grant cycle. And so what I did was I just included all of our grant dollars for Leon County. So that's actually how much it costs, or that's how much we bring in and how much it costs for us to actually operate our Leon centers as well as serve the children and families in our community. So my CFO said it's a presentation issue. So it was presented differently last time, and I wanted to make sure that you had a holistic view of how much it actually costs for us to operate our Leon centers. And that's just a full budget for our Leon centers and how much it costs for us to operate those centers.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. So the other follow-up question, your application indicates a wait list of 125 children, and does that number fluctuate? If you could explain on that.
Yes, it does. It does fluctuate. It actually depends on the time of the year. So in the summer months, our wait list goes down because we are reopening in August, so we're pulling a lot of children off of our waiting list. As the year goes on, the wait list increases throughout the year, because during that time, families are beginning to go back to work and they need care and they need services. And so around, like, I would say January, February, the waiting list begins to go up. But as we get closer to May, it goes up even higher than that, because a lot of families know that we're getting ready to open for the new program year. which is in August. So that number goes, it does fluctuate up and down throughout the year.
You want to take question 3 right after that?
Question 3 was the long-term outcomes.
The details on the long term. Yep.
So every year we have children to leave us as they age out of our program. And so this past year we had 48 children that left us. All of those children are assessed. And so what we use internally is we have a management by outcomes report. And that management by outcomes report does tell us where those children started at the beginning of that program year and then where they ended as far as whether they're meeting or exceeding. So exceeding their developmental milestones, to be exact. So one of the things that I have here is I have a little bit of that data so that you can see that it's not only that they successfully left our program, but we also assess them to ensure that they have the necessary developmental tools and skills in order to go to their next level of education, which would be either Head Start or a private child care center or a pre-K program. Because some of our children, not all of our children go to Head Start. Some of our children do, the families decide to take the children to other child care facilities or other programs. And then sometimes, specifically with our Part C children, they go into the school system into a pre-K program. And so, so there are different levels of outcomes that we use to determine the success of our program. So for instance, at the beginning of the program year, we assessed 128 children. And for social emotional, and this is just a for instance, for social emotional, we had 118 of the 128 either met or exceeded their developmental milestones. And this is at the beginning of the program year. And that would be similar to the physical domain. So that's gross motor skills there, that's outdoor playground, or playing with balls, tricycles, all of those. We had, of the 128, we had 109 that either met or exceeded their developmental milestones. And so those are just 2, for instance. And then at the end of the year, we assessed 141 children, because keep in mind, we do have children that leave us during the program year. So for social emotional, of the 141, 140 of them met or exceeded their developmental milestones. And so that just shows that they are getting what they need by the end of the year from our teaching staff. Physical domain, 137 of the 141 either met or exceeded their developmental milestones. So that's another tool that we use in order to determine the success and the outcomes of our program. One of the other things that we utilize internally and also for assessing ourselves as a program is we do a parent survey, which is a self-assessment for the parents to show engagement. And so we utilize that parent survey to tell us whether or not we're really engaging the families. And so this current year, we had 130 families that responded to our survey. And of the engagement level of our families, and that includes they're encouraged to develop relationships with the staff to support their children. They're confident to address their family's specific needs during the program year, and those needs include safety, health stability, housing stability, job stability. And so all those things are addressed throughout the year. And so we had 93.4% of our families, of that 130, that stated that they were engaged by our program. And then we had 5% that were somewhat engaged by our program. So they might have felt in certain areas where they weren't really getting all the things that they need, but the majority of our families get exactly what they need. And so we use this tool also to determine how we're doing as a program, the success and the outcomes of our program for the families that we serve. So those are tools that we also use and couple with children transitioning out.
For 3.5 minutes left, LaFonda. And I just wanted to state that I would like to see all that kind of information in your application next time.
Yes, ma'am. We will make sure that that is included. Yes, ma'am. But did those responses answer your questions that you may have?
Yes. Yeah. But that's the type of information when we're comparing, you know, an increase to an ask or something like that. What is the long term? How are these outcomes being measured? How can we validate an increase or compare it to? Yeah. So that's helpful for the team.
And I will definitely make sure that I include that in our next application. And as we are reporting, we'll make sure that we include this data into our, especially our end of the year report.
And please note when you adjust the budget figures like that, let us know that background, you know, as to why there may be this increase or decrease or what's being portrayed there, because that clarification helps us as well.
I will just chuck that up to, this is my first time doing the actual application from start to finish, including the budget piece. So now that I know that, I'm definitely taking that mental note, and Darren's probably writing it down for me as well.
Well, Michelle or Margot, did you have any additional questions? All right. Well, LaFonda, thank you so very much for your time, and this has gone very smooth for us and the others that joined us, your board members and those. We appreciate the work that you all do. And
excuse me, Chris, there's still 1.5 minutes remaining if LaFonda or anyone else wants to add anything.
Did y'all need to add anything?
I really didn't have anything.
I do see that Karen Walker is actually on the call as well. She's one of our board members. So I don't know if she wants to add anything. I can't hear you. There you go.
I'm having, hear me now?
Yes.
You can? Okay, good. All right. I'm sorry I joined late. I was locked out of the meeting somehow, and Virginia was kind enough to unlock me so I could join. So I apologize.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
Thanks for being nice to me, though.
No problem. I know the questions you posed, one of them included, I'm sure LaFonda's already gone over this, kind of the plans in light of COVID-19. I would just like to say we did have a board meeting last week, and the plans are incredibly well thought out, very, very detailed, and the board recognized LaFonda and the whole Kids Incorporated team for the thought that they have put into that to make sure that the children, their parents, and the staff are as safe as possible in these extraordinary times. So just wanted you to know Kids Incorporated has gone above and beyond when it comes to that, the staff has, and trying to plan for the future to make sure these kids are back in very, very important programs in a way that's as safe as possible.
Thank you, and that's the end of your time.
thank you, Ms. Walker, for that. Yep, and thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The team lead and our 3 other esteemed reviewers here. You've got Ms. Pat Holliday from the City of Tallahassee and some other city and county CHSP staffers. We can go ahead and do introductions and kick things off. And then we'll have Ms. Samantha will be our timekeeper this afternoon, and you'll have 20 minutes when she gives the go-ahead. The first question that we'll pose is really how COVID has impacted your organization, or how you thought into the future of how those impacts may continue, and how you would respond to those. And then we've got some more specific questions that you should have received from our review panel. So when Samantha turns it over to you if you'll jump into the COVID response, and then we'll wait and go through the other questions. I would also remind everyone that please mute your lines if you are not speaking. It helps with the feedback and allows us to understand everyone a little better. So my name is Chris Holley. As I said, I work for the Florida League of Cities. I've been here for 2 years, and before that I worked for Leon County for 10. I was a budget and finance background there, and this is my 5th year serving with the CHSP process. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to the rest of our review panel.
Hi, I'm Margot Thomas. I'm the program director for the Take Stock in Children program with TCC, and this is my 7th year as a CHSP reviewer.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Burke, and I'm the owner of Favorite Travel and Tours.
Hold on, Samantha, you're muted. There you go. You got to restart.
I'm sorry. I'm Samantha Beige. I'm a lawyer and part-time arbitrator, semi-retired. This is my 4th or 5th year. I can't remember. So welcome aboard. I'm your timekeeper, and you have 20 minutes beginning now for your presentation.
Hello, I am Sheila Lavissiere. During the summer, I serve as the executive director for the Freedom School program, but during the regular school year, I am the Title I and ESOL coordinator for FAMU DRS. And so with the presentation, would you like for me to, I have a PowerPoint pulled up, so I don't know if I could share my screen or no.
No, I would just crank through it with the time restraints. I think if you want to hit the COVID points, and then I want to make sure that we get to the questions asked from our review panel, and it's important that we get those.
Oh yes, of course. And Dr. West, you can chime in as you feel free. Dr. West serves as our assistant superintendent. But from what we're doing right now, I'm not sure if you guys are aware of FAMU DRS, our structure, but we are a K-12 school during the regular school year. So just as all other schools in the state of Florida, we had to close down in response to COVID-19. And with that being said, we did have to, unfortunately, but cancel our summer program this summer. So all fundraising activity, of course, we had to put a halt to that. And so right now we are hoping that the governor will open up the school, you know, of course, if it's safe enough, but if that is the case, we're hoping that the schools are open up in the fall. And if the school opens up in the fall, we'll be able to jump back into our fundraising activities. Freedom School programs, if you don't know too much about it, it's basically a grassroots summer program. And so different Freedom School programs throughout the nation have different funding models. We primarily will use Title I and RESOL and Title I and our reading allocation dollars to fund the program, but we do fundraise to provide just additional items for our students, because the only thing our students pay is a $25 application fee. Everything else in our program is free of charge. Our students receive breakfast, lunch, as well as snacks throughout the days. All of their field trips are paid for through fundraising efforts, as well as our Title I grant dollars. Program t-shirts are provided by us to our students. All of our parent workshops, all of that, all of the costs comes out of what we fundraise. So it truly is a free program that we offer to our students. We wish we would have been able to open this program up to all students throughout the Tallahassee community. However, we cannot, because we partner with the Children's Defense Fund. We pay $285 per child in order to receive curriculum materials. And so that is one reason why, you know, we do have a restriction on the amount of students we can enroll in our program. If we could enroll all of our students, we would love to, because we do get a lot of requests from parents because we offer a 6-week literacy program. Our students come to the school, they get dropped off at about 8 o'clock in the morning. So between 8 and 8:30, we have our breakfast time slot, and then we jump into Harambe. And so Harambe is a time where we pull together.
Excuse me. Are you, Sheila, just to interject, are you responding to the questions from the panel?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. I started.
Are these questions specific to the panel, Chris?
Well, the one that it looked like how a typical day would go, is that what you're getting into right now?
Into the
Okay,
day.
just to make sure we're treating everyone the same, okay? Thank you.
But and Sheila, were you done with the COVID and how you guys were?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I talk a lot, so I never know when to pause. My apologies. So yes, I was done with COVID, and then I jumped into what does a typical day look like?
Okay.
Okay, my apologies. And I'm sorry, Dr. West, did you want to add anything?
No, right now I'm just listening, but I will add something when appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. And so, yeah, so following breakfast, we jump into Harambe, and then the Harambe piece of our program. Harambe is actually a Swahili word term. It means let's pull together. So this is the time within our program, all of our kids come together. If we have parents on campus, they're free to join. If we have other programs on campus, they're free to join. And so during this time period, this is the very hype part of our program. We get the kids excited about the day. We do cheers and chants. We do announcements during this time period, and we have read aloud guests, which is very interesting for our students. We're able to get different read aloud guests throughout the community. It could be parents, it could be university professors, it's also students. And so they'll read aloud to our students. And then following our Harambe piece, we go into the classrooms. Because we are a literacy-based program, the first 3 hours of the day, our students are in the integrated reading curriculum. They're participating in this curriculum. Of course, they have breaks built in during this time slot. Following our integrated reading curriculum, we move into our lunch hour, and our students are given an entire full lunch hour. And then following lunch, we go into our afternoon activities. And so we have 2 1-hour blocks for our afternoon activities. And it could range from swimming. We take the kids swimming on campus. We also have STEM classes. We've had, I can't remember the name of the company, but we've had someone come out to do violin activities with the students. So we try to really get our kids engaged in different activities so that they're excited to come back the next day, just to kind of break up the monotony of just, reading for the full 3 hours of the day. Following our afternoon activities, of course, we go into our dismissal. Some students stay for extended services, and we offer that to parents up until 6 p.m. And so that's pretty much a typical day in a Freedom School program.
So Sheila, you said it began at 8:30 in the morning, and that's when breakfast?
Breakfast is from 8 to 8:30.
Okay, yeah. And then you said from breakfast, you went into Harambe, then you had literacy after that, you had lunch, you had swimming, STEM, you had other activities, and then the potential for extended stay beyond that.
Yes.
Okay. And that was another follow-up to that question was, it appears that the program is self-initiating, and could teachers play a role in identifying students who would benefit from the program so they could be recruited? And I think that gets more into, I think there was another question in here about looking for diversity within the program or the students that are there, and how those students are identified to participate in the program.
Right. So with our program, we do not recruit students into our program because it's technically a summer camp. So parents, they're allowed to enroll into our program. Teachers do play a role in providing the flyers to parents. If they feel as though it's a student that might really need to be a part of our program, they'll reach out to us and we'll make sure the parents receive appropriate documentation. But we do not do student recruitment per se, outside of just we post flyers and we have our websites. But for the most part, parents, they know about our program. We've also partnered with a downtown community, it's called Downtown Community Church, for a couple of years. And so they've also had a site at their school. We also had a site in Gaston County. So people know about our program. But again, teachers can send us information and then we will reach out to those parents. But one of the things, there was a question regarding partnership with
the Big Bend, Second Harvest. Sorry, it's not Big Bend, Second Harvest.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we don't necessarily have a partnership with them. We don't have a partnership with them, but if we do receive like flyers or information, we will send that out to parents. Our school is a summer feeding site. And so we utilize, we leave all of the food handling to our cafeteria manager. I don't get into that. It's not my realm. But that's one of the reasons why we haven't technically partnered with them. When we do receive
Michelle,
information,
can I interject here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. The gentleman that's answering the or asking the questions is Patricia.
Yeah, my name's Chris.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna call you Mr. Chris if that's okay.
Mr. Holly, Chris, yeah, it's okay.
All right, wonderful. Well, what Michelle is trying to say, we don't necessarily partner with the Big Bend. However, because we are a K-12 school and we have a what I would consider a homeless liaison and a homeless program, we do offer services year-round. And therefore, if we have students that are eligible or have issues or need those services, we have a homeless liaison as well as a school social work who is there and who's willing to give information or to allow for parents or students to take a part in those programs. And we ourselves have our own food pantry, which we stock year-round. And also, we are a CEP school. So if you're familiar with that, 100% of our students receive free and reduced lunch, which is the reason why we became a school site for Meals for Children. That anybody that is 18 and under, as you know, throughout the entire Leon County and surrounding areas can come to one of our sites during the summer and eat. And if we discover that there's a child or a family that is in need of services, certainly through our Student Support Services program, we will definitely provide them with those services.
Thank you for that, Dr. West.
Yes, sir.
All right.
There were a couple questions. I was going to go into maybe these more specific ones, but it looked like the program outcome framework, and there was a second point there where the last short-term outcome appeared to be missing.
Okay.
The example with 85% of participants will demonstrate improvement. Could you clarify that for us?
Yes, I don't know how I missed that one, but it's supposed to say 85% of participants will demonstrate improvement in self-esteem and self-efficacy. So we partner with Temple Fit, and they have been providing us with professional development workshops with our students, our staff, as well as parents on the 6 dimensions of wellness. And so that's where we pulled that from. So our students learn about the different elements of wellness and then how they can apply what they've learned in their lives so that they're better able to manage themselves. A lot of our students, it is a low income school. We do serve some of the students in the surrounding schools, So a lot of our kids, some come into our schools with having experienced some traumas. And so we try to work around what they've been through to manage all of this so that they can better increase their self-esteem about who they are as themselves. And then also so that they're better able to self-identify, also increasing their self-esteem.
Okay. I was going to ask how you measure that outcome.
So
from the beginning to the end.
Yes, so so Temple Fit utilizes an outside agency and they will conduct the pre and post survey. And so that's how we get the data. Also FSU, we partner with FSU as well. So FSU has a fellowship. So their purpose fellows also assist us with a lot of our surveys.
Was that that's how you came to the 85% number, or is that
yes,
there was successful improvement from the pre-survey and the post-survey?
Yes.
There were questions related to your thoughts on the structure of your board of directors, and if you thought that adequately reflected the diversity and inclusion, and what efforts you might take to attempting to diversify your board. And is that something that you guys have considered or are continuing to consider?
Ms. Chris, it's Patricia here again. Just wanted to first of all let you know that as a lab school, our board is prescribed by statute. We have to make sure that we meet each category in order to operate our board under the law. So with that, and certainly as a follow-up, if Ms. Labissiere needs to send you that statute where you can see what the constituents look like, that would be okay. However, with that, we assure that our board members are met with, I would say, the demographics through a nominating committee. And so therefore, anyone who meets those qualifications, school-wide, university-wide, or community-wide can apply for a seat on the board. And through that nominating committee, we strive to be as diverse as possible. So say, for instance, our board has two or three members of the College of Education. We have about 3 or 4 members of the actual school itself, that's parents. We have a student representation, and then also we have 2 or 3 slots that are community at large. And those are publicized each staggering term, and that nominating committee will seat board members to apply as well.
And that's what, so you only had one qualifying candidate through that was not African American?
Now, I wouldn't say qualifying candidate. That's not necessarily the case. We only have one that applied through our process that was nominated and has continued on. Certainly, we've had more.
There was and I think, Sheila, you may have actually already answered this question about fundraising and how you hope to pick that back up in the fall. And we were just curious what other opportunities you were starting to think about.
Mm-hmm. So we've actually reached out to.
Excuse me, you got 4.5 minutes left.
Thank you, Samantha.
Oh, no. Okay, so we've actually contacted AmeriCorps. So previously in the past, we've had, we were a site underneath the, what is called Community and Schools Partnership, something. However, they lost their grant. And so we've contacted AmeriCorps to see if we can open up, if we can serve as our sponsor organization. And so that has opened up. So we're hoping to submit the grant, which is due in September. And if we are allowed to do so, or given the opportunity to host an AmeriCorps organization on our campus, then that would help us significantly with the salaries portion of our budget. But we have considered that, as well as other fundraising initiatives.
So I would also, and I know we don't have much time left, but I wanted you to be able to respond to the question about the salaries and the benefits that you listed on here. And so
yeah. So I went back and took a look at it. I think what happened is it may have been misread because it has 2 paragraphs. And in the first one, I explained the breakdown for all of our SLIs, which are our student leader interns. And so salaries for them come up till about I think 26,000. And then without considering the benefits, which was, I can't remember what I have it written down.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, it came to 26.4, and then the benefits came to 29.8, and then there was a second paragraph that went into.
Yes, so the actual breakdown, yeah. So I think what happened is it may have been the calculation wasn't, I guess it wasn't looked at or correctly.
There's 30%, it looks like, for benefits.
No, it's not. So if you look, it's the 26, it's 26,400. That's for the SLIs, their benefit, their salary, and then the second paragraph is for the site coordinators. Their salary is 9,600. Those 2 added together will get you 36,000, and then the remainder 4,680 is the benefit.
Okay.
I think is how it was written was a little confusing, but yeah, the only part that's going to benefits is $4,680.
Okay. And as I've told all of the other agencies, if we are unable to fully fund, would you just reduce the amount but still provide the service with whatever funding you received, or are there drawdown funds that what would impact would this have if we weren't able to fully fund you?
Well, the school has been great to me. So I will say the school has worked to identify funds. I know the foundation has also been really good with helping me secure funds. We recently have been able to get a $10,000 grant from the Florida Lottery. So they're really good with helping us kind of, piecemeal money to operate our program. So I mean, we're hoping this isn't the case, but if we're not able to get the funding that we're requesting from you all, or at least the full amount, I am hopeful that we will be able to piecemeal it together and have our program. We've had our program since 2016, and this is the first year that we have not been able to function, and it's only because of, COVID-19. But since we started our program, we have been able to serve our students with fidelity in the way in which our national organization has asked us. We have partnered with the university to make sure that our College of Ed students are receiving professional development. A lot of those students tend to go back into the classroom and become teachers. So people are out there helping us to make sure this works. We're just hoping that the city of Tallahassee can help us out. This would literally be a breath of fresh air, not having to fight so much to get the money, but I get it,
Samantha, how much time do we have left? What's that, Samantha?
Time is up right now.
Okay, I see Michelle counting it down for us. Well, Sheila, Dr. West, we appreciate you taking the time, doing the application, all the hard work that you do. It is not easy, and neither is our job now. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. We appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
A participant has left the meeting.
Three, six.
I know, boy, I'm embarrassed about that. I think they listed 6,936 in one spot and 27 in another. And I this isn't the first agency that's done that. So,
Yeah.
but I apologize for it. It's full of typos. I wasn't paying attention, obviously.
Okay. We just need clarification on how many clients they serve.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. If you put your line, if you're not speaking, to help with some of the background noise. Eddie, you could mute yours for us, please. And I guess Stephanie's got hers muted. There we go. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and kick things off. We appreciate you guys making the time, and we'll do some basic housekeeping things here first. My name is Chris Holly. I'm the team lead. I work for the Florida League of Cities. I've been here for 2 years, and before that worked for Leon County for 10, and a budget and finance background. And this is my 5th year participating in the CHSP process. We've got 3 other review panelists here, and Samantha will be our timekeeper. Like I said, we only really have a 20-minute window. We appreciate you guys keeping your answers as succinct as possible to help us get through the questions that we have as quickly as possible. Like I said before, we ask that you make sure that your lines are muted unless you are speaking, and that you only speak to this particular program. With that being said, the first question that we'll cover that we've asked all of the agencies is really how you plan to respond to COVID, and how that might impact some of the services that you provide, and even if that's budget impacts or service impacts for the current year into the fall. And then we'll also, like I said, go into the detailed questions following that. So with all that being said, I'll kick it over to the rest of our team to introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Margot Thomas. I'm the program director for Take Stock in Children at TCC, and I've been a part of the CHSP review team for 7 years.
Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Burt. I'm the owner of Favorite Travel and Tours, and this is my fourth or fifth cycle.
Good afternoon. This is Samantha Boge. I'm a lawyer and a part-time arbitrator and semi-retired, and I've been working with CHSP for 4 or 5 years. And I'm your timekeeper, and I am charged to begin your time. Right now, you have 20 minutes.
So please, whoever introduce yourself, who will be responding to the question, and begin speaking.
Hello, this is Stephanie Sebastianon. Can you hear me?
We can. Thank you, Stephanie.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to respond to the questions for possible funding. I'd like to begin with stating that the ELC is required by its state funder to submit a COOP plan every year, and that's a requirement that we meet. However, when COVID impacted the world, the ELC made the decision actually to not activate its contingency of operations plan.
Sarah Orlowski has joined the meeting.
And we went ahead and we immediately transitioned over a 1 to 2 week period to a full telework environment for all 42 of our staff. One of those had always been teleworking. So over those 1 to 2 weeks, we were successfully able to make all process and form changes that were needed to serve all families, childcare providers, and community partners. All of our staff have the required technology, computers, printers, scanners, telephones, MiFi devices, whatever the case may be. And we're happy to share that the online portal through which families submit applications is available online. Families routinely access that using their smartphones. And it also allows families to take photos of documents like birth certificates and upload those documents to their application through the portal. Are there any questions about the ELC's ability to handle services during COVID?
I don't think so, Stephanie, and you think that will continue as the norm for the near future, at least?
I think it's something that we've been looking at for a while now, especially with the application process being online, but we don't want to be completely remote. We're looking at several different scenarios of going to community locations where the majority of our customers, so that we're always available to our community, because we know some people, even though they have access to technology through smartphones, that you also need a warm hand sometimes.
Have you seen any impacts to your budget related to COVID?
It has either increased
or costs.
I'm sorry?
Either savings or costs.
Not at this time, because we've continued services without any lapse. As a matter of fact, we have actually been able to serve an additional priority of certain types of essential services that the governor and the Florida Department of Education came out about. That's with a different funding source. We're not asking for that new population to be covered by CHSP funding.
Okay. Sure. And Sarah, are you going to then be responding to the questions that came from our review panel, or do you have those in front of you?
I'm sorry, did you direct that to me, Stephanie?
Yes, sorry, Stephanie, yes.
I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a Sarah on the phone. I will be responding to some of those questions. Would you like me to begin?
Yes, please.
Okay, so arbitrarily, I'll start with those submitted by Ms. Boge. She asked whether the ELC serves over 6,000 customers or 27 customers. The answer is we have diverse funding, primarily from the state and the feds. So with the ELC School Readiness Program, we do serve nearly the 7,000 customers. However, with the funding from CHSP, that's where we serve the 27 customers annually.
Right. And Stephanie, that's what we're most interested in, only really interested in, is those that are served within Leon County, obviously, because that's what these funds are geared towards supporting.
Understood.
So is that the 27 number? Is that the Leon County number?
Yes, that is the Leon County. This CHSP funded program is only within Leon County, and that would be 27 unduplicated customers each year.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You ready?
And is that how we determine the unit cost of service for those? Was something that needed a little bit of clarification, if you wouldn't mind.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and ask Travis Gordon if he would respond to that question, please.
Sure. Thank you,
Travis.
Travis.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Travis Gordon, and just to respond to that one, it looks like the instructions indicated that we were to use the full budget amount divided by total clients served.
New things that we
And in reviewing the application, it looks as if we took the basically total number of direct services expenses provided and then divided that by the total clients served.
Hold on 1 second. Did everybody else hear that? Was that somebody else that chimed in and started speaking? Okay.
It's in somebody's background, somebody named Morgan.
Yeah, I heard that. Okay. Sorry about that, Travis. I apologize. I won't hold that 30 seconds against you. Could you keep going?
Yes, again, I'm looking at the application as I was reviewing it. It appears as if I think the confusion may have been because it actually the formula asks you to take the total budgeted for the most completed year divided by total client served to get that per client cost. And it looks like what we did was we took the total dollars that we spent on direct services and divided that number by total client served. So I'm not sure if that's where the question came from, or if it really was about the 27 that was reported.
Both.
Both. Okay, and I think that, and it's because.
Do you want to address that?
Yes, and it's because you're thinking of the 27 as being a lower number. Was that the concern?
I think you have to use the whole budget, don't you?
I agree, and that's why I said I feel like on there that we should have used the 25 million as opposed to the 22 million when we performed that calculation.
Okay.
And again, what we were doing is we took the total. We spent $22 million on direct services. However, the agency's budget is 25 million. So when we were trying to find a per client cost, we weren't really including things that were not direct services to our clients.
Michelle, you have a question if you'd like to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I'm sorry. Good afternoon, Travis. Is there any way that you can send that corrected information to us at the close of this session so that we can see your actual numbers?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you.
Now, Stephanie, if you would like to continue, I think that answers questions 1 and 2. And then there was a question about what services were provided to the 21 children that were ages 13 to 18.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. So for the services provided to children in the 13 to 18 age bracket, it is still childcare services. If you're a 13-year-old, that would assume that you usually attend some type of schooling, K-12 schooling during the day. So it would be before school services, after school services, and also summer camp so that parents can continue their education or working. That said, we enroll children from the age of birth to 12. So when 12-year-old children have a birthday and they're 13, we continue serving them until the parent has to redetermine their eligibility, which happens usually once a year. And at that point, we will stop serving the 13-year-old. Also, for purposes of the CHSP funded portion, we target families with children aged birth to 5. And in that case, that would be child care services as long as the parent needs them. So if a parent has one job, we will provide child care services from 8 to 6. If they have 2 jobs, we can also provide them services in the evening or on the weekend and so forth.
Okay. Would you like to address the other questions about board diversification and what efforts have been made to that end?
At this point, I would like to ask Liz Murphy, our CEO, to respond to that, please.
Okay. Liz, you are on mute and looks like no lights on or hiding in a closet or something because it is a black screen.
Okay, let's try this. Can you hear me though?
We can. Yep. Oh,
Okay,
yep.
awesome.
There
All right.
you are.
Okay, so I am going to address questions 1 through 3. So we have several programs at the EOC, not just the school readiness program. So our voluntary pre-kindergarten and child care resource and referral programs both have a broad based clientele spanning all socioeconomic groups and ethnicities, which our board of directors and staff do represent. We have a staff of 41 that represent a wide variety of ages, ethnicities, and socioeconomic groups. 14 are African Americans, 6 are Hispanic, and 39 are female. Our staff also represent each of the counties we serve. And our board, 16 members in total, includes 5 minorities and 9 females. We advertise all our private sector openings in our 7 county service areas as they become available, and anyone can apply. We have a great partnership with local colleges and have representatives of TCC and FSU currently on our board of directors. Our executive committee is made up of a female FSU representative, a Hispanic business owner, an African American female business owner, and the executive director of Career Source Capital Region. We received several volunteers also per semester from our local colleges through our outreach department, and some of them volunteer within our contracted childcare sites as well as volunteer within our offices. So that for number 1. Any questions about that one?
No, thank you.
Okay. And so question number 2 was regarding if anyone on our staff speaks Spanish. So yes, of the 41 staff, we have 6 Hispanic staff who are fluent Spanish speakers, including myself. We have at least 1 in each of our departments except for finance. And then the third question was regarding if this coalition services only Leon and Gaston counties, why are members of our board from areas outside of those service areas? So we do have the 7 counties. We are statutorily mandated to have a board member representative from each county that we serve. And it has proven to be extremely beneficial to have board members from our various service areas. They bring forward any type of new initiatives that are occurring within those communities, where we pilot new projects for our customers, including presenting new partnership opportunities with local businesses. So we have a very dedicated board that's committed to our mission and vision and understand the importance of consistent attendance. So usually we do not experience any difficulties with meeting our quorum.
That's great. I think that's it. The final question, or I guess, yeah, was more about special needs and any of your staff that have experience in that.
Okay, and I think Stephanie's gonna take care of that question for me.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
This is Stephanie. First, I'd like to say that in the application, we began with an introductory statement from a research paper that 1 in 5 children living below the poverty level have a mental, behavioral, or developmental disability. And then we followed that because with a local study, because the CHSP had emphasized the need for some local data. So we shared some information from Whole Child Leon community screenings where it indicated that 62% of children at those screenings are identified as having a delay The Early Learning Coalition is a key partner in community screening, and it happens twice a year. So part of what the ELC's application reflected is that families self-identify to participate in that screening. So clearly, when that happens, families will know themselves whether they have a concern about their child. So that 62% figure will be quite high as a result of it. However, we do serve those children in the school readiness program, and also, as Liz pointed out, in our child care resource and referral and VPK programs. So that explained, we do certainly have a number of staff on board that specialize in working with special needs children. We have an inclusion specialist and a warm line specialist, so that when families with concerns or childcare providers about children in their care contact us, we can immediately respond to them by providing developmental screenings on the children. We follow up with both the parents and the childcare providers by including activities that both of those can do, whether at home or at the childcare site, to work with their children in an effort to get their children caught up. Then we routinely rescreen the child at regular intervals to see if the child has progressed. And we have found most typically that most children are able to screen at the milestones appropriate for their age. And in the seldom instance where a child does not, at that point, we will then make a referral to a community partner, such as Early Steps or Fiddlers, or the local school district, to begin working with the children before they enter public school. That said, in addition to the inclusion specialist and the warm line specialist, a number of our staff in the early care and education team are all trained on the developmental screening tool Ages and Stages questionnaire. So we have several staff that have been screened on SMART ESAC, which is the early screening for autism and communication disorders. Our state funder also convenes monthly inclusion meetings where they train us on best practices, they apprise us of new developments in the field, and we also work with the developers of the Ages and Stages questionnaire to help them pilot new types of screenings. And as a result of that, we are often one of the first individuals or entities that they reach out to further train our employees before other people in the field get to it.
Excuse me, you have approximately 2.5 minutes left.
Okay, any questions about that?
No, I don't think so. From myself, does Michelle or Margot, Samantha? No? Okay. Well, between Stephanie and Liz, I think you guys hit the questions that were submitted. Does anyone else? And then I think, Travis, you were going to get us some additional information on the cost per client served for Leon County. Is that correct from Michelle's request?
That is correct. The updated numbers that uses the entire budget as opposed to just our direct care costs.
Okay. Was there anything else? If there's nothing else from the review panel, I don't know if Stephanie or Liz, if you'd like to recognize any of your board members that are here, if there's any other comments that would like to be made.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can now.
I'd like to recognize Eddie Gonzalez Lumiere, who sits on our executive committee and is also our current finance chair, and Dr. Tara Orlowski. I think she might be on the call. I'm not really sure. It's not showing up on my banner. But if she's on the call, if you guys have anything that you would like to say to the committee.
So this is Tara Orlowski. So the only thing I would add to Liz's answer around our board diversity is that Liz is absolutely correct that we publicly advertise the positions that we're allowed to, but many of them are statutorily required, and those agencies tell us who's going to be on our board, so we don't have full control over who sits on our board. So I think that's just important to understand about why we don't always get to select every board member.
Okay, thank you. Eddie, anything?
No, I appreciate, the committee, the group, everything you guys do for the county, for the neighborhood, and for the community. So we're grateful for the opportunity and look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Look at that. Perfectly done. Thank you guys very much for working with us on this and for your continued work.
Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara Orlowski.
Has left the meeting.